So I put up a poll recently on the community tab asking people what remake do they want to see from Capcom next, and a lot of people chose Code Veronica. It was a bit of a tie between Resident Evil 5 and Code Veronica. I also put Outbreak on there, but I feel like there's a stronger fan base as it pertains to Code Veronica, and I never really understood that. I I respect what Code Veronica is and what it was and what it stood for regarding the Resident Evil community and the entire timeline that we're currently dealing with in regards to the mainline games. But I don't know. I was just never really a fan of it back in the day. And just with what we've gotten so far as it pertains to Resident Evil 4, the remake, it really seems as though Capcom is in a good position as well to make Resident Evil 5. I know a lot of people, there has been some apprehension, people talking about it might be perceived as racist, but it takes place in Africa. What type of zombies are you expecting them to fight? I don't see anything racist about it. It's, the geolocation is Africa. I don't necessarily see anything racist about that. You're going to have, African zombies in Africa. So Chris ain't doing nothing wrong over there. But anyways, I want to put this out to those that are watching this. Do you really actually think that we'll receive a Code Veronica remake? I guess is the question that I kind of want to just pose to the community, people that are watching this, because honestly, I really feel like we will get Resident Evil 5. And you can look at the research, you can look at the statistics. Resident Evil 5 is actually the highest selling Resident Evil game ever. May not be the best in the franchise, in the storied franchise, but it is the highest selling Resident Evil game ever. And before Monster Hunter, it was the top selling game for Capcom. So I definitely think they'll refine it, of course, especially the multiplayer aspect of it to make it work today. But I mean, there's a lot of people rallying around Code Veronica, which I understand that. But I just don't necessarily think they'll work on Code Veronica. I definitely don't think it's the next remake for Capcom. If they are considering to remake Code Veronica, honestly, they should also think about remaking Resident Evil 0. I mean, that came before all of them. Not in the actual release of the games, but in the storyline, in the storyline, the Resident Evil storyline, that's why it's 0. It's supposed to come before 1. I wasn't really a fan of that one either. I don't know what the consensus is from the Resident Evil community. Again, I'd love for you all to comment on that as well. But it definitely seems as though we will be getting Resident Evil 5. There's no definitive proof right now. There hasn't been an official word confirmation from Capcom just yet about that. But if we're thinking about if we're just talking about like the grand scheme of things, let's just open this up to remakes in general coming from Capcom. There's other games Capcom could be working on. Like, for one, I personally would love to see a Dino Crisis remake. I think a lot of people would, but instead of a Dino Crisis, remake, we're getting a new IP in Exoprimal. Exoprimal, which is very similar to Dino Crisis in themes. Thematically speaking, it's very similar to Dino Crisis. You have a bunch of these individuals that are going around fighting dinosaurs. Like, it's very and there's no connection. The game devs have come out and said that there's no connection to Dino Crisis in regards to Exoprimal, which is totally fine. It's totally fine. You got a new IP. You want to kind of like spring it on us. But honestly, I feel like that's the wrong approach if you want to garner a new audience, because essentially what Capcom is going to be doing is they're going to be tapping into the Dino Crisis audience, people that were fans of Dino Crisis, they're going to be tapping into that. Like, the reason my curiosity is piqued is because of my interest in Dino Crisis. If I was never interested in Dino Crisis, I wouldn't be interested in what Exoprimal is, what it can be, what it will be. But I'm only interested because of Dino Crisis. But I'll tell you right now, one of the ways that they should have gone about doing this, because we as fans of Dino Crisis, that particular IP has been silent, it's been laying dormant for so many years. And there's been an outcry, online outcry, fans rallying, coming together, like just expressing how much they would love to receive a Dino Crisis remake. And instead of answering that call, Capcom has decided to give us a new IP, which is understandable. You want to try new things. You don't want to always rehash previous ideas. But it seems as though Capcom has made that, part of their business strategy. And with the success of Resident Evil 4 Remake, and the previous remakes, like, it seems as they have a track record of remaking some of their classics. So for Dino Crisis to remain dormant for so many years is just odd. And yet you're kind of like reigniting that whole humans versus dinosaurs trope with Exoprimal. One of the ways they could have gone about like building an audience around Exoprimal, maybe they do something similar to what we see with Resident Evil 4 Remake and Mercenaries, where Mercenaries is a DLC for the mainline game, Resident Evil 4 Remake. So maybe it could have been Dino Crisis Remake, and one of the DLCs is Exoprimal, which I feel like that definitely would have, because what you would have done is you would have attracted that audience that's steeped in nostalgia. They have a fondness for the original series, Dino Crisis. Maybe, and now that you're talking about DLC and there's this new thing that you're trying to implement, Exoprimal, maybe they're interested in checking that out because they're interested in Dino Crisis. But to be quite honest with you all, I don't have like a hardcore interest in Exoprimal, but I'm gonna check it out, of course. But again, it's not what we would have hoped for, which is Dino Crisis. We all would have hoped for Dino Crisis, a remake of that. So if we're talking about like just a grand scheme of things, I think Dino Crisis definitely has to be brought into that conversation. I know a lot of people, like I said earlier, I know a lot of people want Code Veronica, and I still don't understand why. I don't know. I was just never fond of it. I'm not hating on it, of course. It's part of the Resident Evil storyline. And as like someone who has been a fan since day one, I got the director's cut years ago for PlayStation 1. And I've also picked up every single one of the remakes. One of my favorites though, and I would love to know if you all agree with this, I feel like one of the best one-to-one remakes was by far Resident Evil 1 remake for GameCube. I feel like that was really true to what it was. The camera angles from everything that takes place within that game. It's like what we received back in the day, only it's enhanced. It's graphically enhanced. It's been pretty much turned up to 11. So that will always forever stand as one of my favorite remakes because of how true to the original it was. And that's not to, say anything, negative, because I would never say anything negative about, the following remakes. It's all part of what it is that they have been doing. But I'm definitely curious to know what you all think should be the next remake. And if you don't think it's going to be Resident Evil 5, then what could it possibly be? Again, just realistically speaking here, do you think we'll actually receive a remake of Code Veronica? I feel like that might be kind of odd as far as like if we're talking about modern times, because we're talking about progression here, and the natural progression of the story would be for Resident Evil 5 to be remade. I feel like a reimagining of that particular game would be interesting to see on next-gen consoles. But again, I understand that there is a fondness for Code Veronica, even if I don't necessarily understand it. But I'm hoping that maybe you all could talk about it in the comment section down below, because I definitely want to understand why there's such a strong fan base around that particular title in the Resident Evil franchise. I want to maybe I should revisit it. I honestly feel like I should, just to kind of like see if I can get it by replaying that particular game. But yeah, definitely let's talk about it down below. What, again, and also in the general sense, outside of the Resident Evil series of games, what do we want from Capcom? Because we know that they are in the business of remakes of their classic games. Specifically Resident Evil, that particular franchise. But you know, one of the games that kind of mirrors that as far as like gameplay and mechanics and everything is Dino Crisis, which was equally as popular back in the day when Dino Crisis was released. So for me, I would definitely love to see Dino Crisis remade. Honestly, it just makes sense. I think it makes sense for that to be remade. Who knows what they're doing behind the scenes? Obviously, you know, you don't have to like tell us all your plans, and they probably wouldn't tell us all their plans. Maybe they are working on it in silence, waiting for the right moment to kind of like spring it upon us as fans to generate that hype. Maybe when they're closer to completion, because let's say like they started work on it like 3-4 years ago. You know, you don't want people thinking about that game. You don't want to build up all that hype 3-4 years ago. Like you want to be working on it 3-4 years ago, perhaps, and build up the hype. Maybe it's releasing 6 months to a year from now. Like, you know, hopefully it wouldn't be a year out, but that could be what is going on behind the scenes. And I feel like Exoprimal they're priming the audience here. I feel like they're priming the gamers, the fans, the hardcore fans of Dino Crisis for something like that. Who knows? There might even be a DLC, a Dino Crisis DLC in Exoprimal. Who knows? We don't know. I definitely have my eyes out, though, on Exoprimal. I will be watching that. I'm also just, you know, watching Capcom like a hawk to see what will happen next, what they're working on next regarding just remakes in general. Again, hoping that we get Resident Evil 5, and I wanting to know from you all watching why you want why do you want Code Veronica? I'm all ears. Let's definitely talk about it down below. I'm excited for what's to come in just like the Resident Evil community, what we're getting from Resident Evil 4 Remake. Still playing it right now. I know a lot of y'all are as well, playing Mercenaries, replaying Resident Evil 4 Remake. It's a fun game. Can't get enough of it. Although I will say this, I love the Duke more than I love the Merchant. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna argue it with anyone unless you think the Merchant's better than the Duke, and I see that comment down below, then I will argue with you, because that's not true in my opinion. But anyways, thank you all so much. If you've gotten this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. And please hit a subscribe, hit that subscribe, hit a like, hit a subscribe on this video. I would love to have you a part of this particular community that I am building here. Talk about video game content all the time, baby. Things that just interest me as well. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you in the comments section and in the next video. Take care.